Welcome to In the Envelope, an awards podcast. I am your host, Jack Smart, awards editor at Backstage. I'm here to give you a front row seat to the Emmys, Oscars, SAG, and Tonys races. Who is in the running? What makes an award-worthy performance? And what are the secrets to giving one? These intimate, inspirational conversations with some of today's most talented stars provide you, dear listener, the kind of craft and career advice that could win you a statue of your own, and maybe, just maybe, a tantalizing glimpse in the envelope.
If there's anything else you want to do,
do that,
and then if you still have this urge, then you can go. I mean, nobody knows anything.
Sure.
And if you meet someone who thinks they know everything, then that's not a teacher you want to work with.
I felt a bit bad because I just realised that halfway through the interview that when I met him downstairs, I shook his hand and said Jamie, because it's my name.
Oh,
and I think he must have thought that I thought he... But then I said that to his rep as well. So I was
oh, how funny. Oh, my God.
Hopefully he didn't think that I thought his name was actually
Well, so
Jamie.
I've been saying for weeks now, like, partly because I hadn't known how to pronounce Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, I have just been referring to him as Jamie or Jaime Lannister.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I used to read the books, Song of Ice and Fire books by George R. R. Martin, in my head, maybe it was just like a personal joke with an inside joke with myself, I pronounced it Jaime. Jaime Lannister.
Yeah. People
just
say
that's how it's spelled. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So Jamie met Jamie.
Yeah.
What did you think?
It's finally happened.
I do feel like this is a final. You know that Backstage has been trying to talk to a Game of Thrones actor for a long time.
Yeah, I know. That was great.
An original cast member of
Game
of Thrones.
A few people have commented, he looks very much like he does on the show in real life as well. Sure. Very much embodies his character.
And we actually, at the end of that interview, we talked a little bit about fame and how it works and how bizarre it is, but also like this idea of when a project is that successful and that well known as Game of Thrones is, like especially for TV, audiences feel like they know the person, the actor or the character. They just feel that affinity, and that's part of the kind of oddity of fame, I think.
Yeah.
And he has a great sense of humor about it.
Yeah.
I think.
It's slightly odd with
funny.
him, but because of he's so well known in such a fantastical setting.
True.
It is weird to see him walking the streets of New York.
Absolutely.
You do expect to see him in a castle or
why doesn't he have his armor on? Yeah, totally. That's a good. Is there like a? I don't know whether we should do like a for those who don't know Game of Thrones segment.
There are no people like that.
So for those tiny bit of the population who have not yet seen the show, like just know that it's a very big hit. And that it's about dragons.
Yeah. And
it is. He described it as an alternative universe, which I think is accurate.
Yeah.
It is real life. And the whole conceit of George R. R. Martin is that he was inspired by the medieval period, but he wanted to put them as if it's modern people in those circumstances and really give them like relatable human modern characteristics.
It's not entirely dissimilar to Lord of the Rings kind of experience.
Oh, and in fact, I was thinking the other day, like the success of Lord of the Rings movies opened the door for the success of Game of Thrones, the TV show.
Yeah.
Because 10 years ago, the idea of a fantasy hit was unheard of, and yet we had the precedent of 3 very successful Lord of the Rings movies.
And Lord of the Rings is coming back now, right?
And now it's like
TV.
Yeah. And Tolkien continues to have adaptations for sure.
Yeah.
But George R. R. Martin is like our living big deal fantasy author.
Yeah.
And he has been involved in the creation of this TV show, although not the most recent seasons.
Plus, there's going to be a spin-off, Game of Thrones.
There's going to be prequels, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, HBO, they've dominated the Emmys every year that Game of Thrones has been out, especially recent seasons, and with both that and Veep both ending this season, there becomes like a void of content for them afterward.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. I'm very curious to see about a prequel. What?
I know.
Inspired by the events of, I don't know. Well, anyway, I'm glad we got an actor from Game of Thrones finally on this podcast, and it went really well, I think.
It did.
Right?
Yeah.
We talked about like some really good acting advice stuff and the early career stuff, and
Yeah, and interesting because he came from obviously the European world as well. That's an interesting perspective. Mainland European world.
Yeah.
And from a non-English speaking world as well. And then broke into the English speaking world.
With the tons of rejection, as he talks about.
Yeah.
As with any acting career.
Yeah, that's a theme.
It's very much a theme. I feel like this podcast has become, or has always wanted to be, like a way of talking about things that could easily be pessimistic, like how much failure and rejection there is in this industry of the arts.
Yeah.
But talking about that or like contextualizing that in a positive way, I would hope.
Yeah. And I think dealing with it by vocalizing it helps.
Yeah. And hearing from people who have experienced success, but who are still very familiar with the opposite of success.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
As with any actor.
And, even someone that has risen to the ranks of Nikolaj has experienced a huge amount of it themselves. So if you're going through it yourself, you're not alone.
Yeah.
And
I have so much respect for those people. Yeah.
And you can just walk into an audition room tomorrow and book next year's Game of Thrones. You never know.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got to get to this interview because we do start off by talking about the fact that nobody knew that this would become Game of Thrones, pop culture, behemoth Game of Thrones. No.
Yeah.
Nobody knew that. He said that the original pilot of the show was terrible.
I want to see that now.
I'd love to see that version.
I'm desperate to see that.
I know. Well, we just said goodbye to Nikolaj because he's off for the Game of Thrones New York premiere.
Yeah.
Which means that Jamie and I are going to go through and edit his interview and release it.
Yeah.
Yay!
Let's get to it.
Hey, if you are an actor or an aspiring actor, someone at the beginning of your artistic career, and you haven't signed up for Backstage yet and you don't know how it works, I have good news for you. Backstage is offering 30 whole days completely free just for our In the Envelope listeners. If you visit backstage.com/subscribe and enter the code ENVELOPE, you will have full access to the site where you can make a profile, upload a headshot, upload a reel, start applying to the thousands of casting notices uploaded every single day on the world's #1 casting platform. Again, we are giving listeners of this podcast 30 days completely free to try out Backstage. Go to checkout, that's backstage.com/subscribe, and enter the code ENVELOPE. If you want to be in contention for an Emmy or for an Oscar or for a Tony or for a SAG award, do as many of the guests on this podcast have suggested and use Backstage. We are here for you. Again, free 30-day trial, backstage.com/subscribe, enter the code ENVELOPE. Nikolaj Coster-Waldau is best known as Jaime Lannister the Kingslayer on HBO's fantasy hit Game of Thrones from David Benioff, D.B. Weiss, and George R.R. Martin. His performance on the show, now launching its highly anticipated final season, has earned him SAG and Emmy nominations. Nikolaj is also an ambassador for the United Nations Development Program and has starred in movies, TV series, and stage productions in and outside his native Denmark. Without further ado, Nikolaj Coster-Waldau. Everybody give him a hand. Well, since we're just getting set up, and I just feel like I need to put this out in the open, and are we recording?
I haven't watched Game of Thrones, of course.
I haven't seen a second of Game of Thrones. Have you?
I have, yeah. My wife hasn't.
Oh, okay.
But
so we're going to air this actually right after the first episode drops.
Okay.
Rather than wait till the season's over. But what I was going to say is I broke my pants today, and I just want to make sure that the elephant is, in the room and that it's recorded on this podcast, just to let you know, like, the button bit of my pants, it's gone. My body is changing. I'm a growing boy.
Can I see?
Yeah, it's just a really weird way to start the interview, but like basically there's just no more like, button situation here.
But clearly, but it's weird because it's not clearly you're a skinny guy.
I've always thought so. Now today I'm like, well, I don't know.
Well, it could also just be the fact that how old are those pants?
Like 5 years old.
Maybe you just wore them out,
Yeah. I'm gonna go with that. We'll go with that. It's just a great way to start an interview, just
who had all the pies? Who had all the pies? You fat bastard! You. Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you,
Nikolaj.
Yes.
Could you maybe pronounce your name for us for the
Nikolaj
for the record?
Nikolaj Coster-Waldau.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us. How are you today? What is the press like going into this final season?
It's it's kind of like always with Game of Thrones.
You're back in the swing of things.
You can't talk about what comes. You can't say anything.
Sure.
So it's always a little about, you talk about the past. Of course, now this press tour is a lot about, the overall experience of having been part of something.
Yes.
That has had this kind of impact.
It's more of a retrospective.
Yes.
The whole
experience.
I know. It was a really long time ago that the show started.
This summer, it'll be 10 years since we shot the pilot. Yeah.
So how could you have known? What did you know going into this show?
Listen, it's funny because yesterday we met as many of the original cast members were in town, and we sat down, and then the producers showed us the original pilot of the show, which was reshot. 90% of that, 95% was reshot, and it was so bad.
Oh, really?
That you realize first of all, how lucky we are, but also that nobody knows anything.
Sure.
I mean, the only thing I don't know why Richard Plepler, who from HBO, decided to pick up this show for serious after having seen that pilot. It was like unwatchable, but very, 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 very funny.
Really?
But my point is just that nobody knows anything in this business, and it's for this thing to suddenly become so successful. There's so many things that have to fit perfectly, and how and why, I don't know.
Totally. I feel like for any TV show, like shooting any pilot, there's a huge era of uncertainty. But I think particularly 10 years ago, a fantasy TV hit was out of the question.
Completely.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ridiculous. And then I remember telling friends that I'd got this HBO show. Now, that sounded really cool.
That sounds cool,
because you go, this is like Sopranos, The Wire.
Totally, yeah.
And back then, Entourage was like really hip and cool. And then they said, so what is it? And now you say, well, it's this thing set in this parallel universe where you have a lot of supernatural forces, and then this girl hatches these dragon eggs, and she has dragon kids, and they become dragon. And people their eyes glaze over, and they go, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
Right. Good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Totally.
But then when we saw that original pilot, you kind of go, "That was what the show sounded like."
Right.
And then what it became was something completely different.
Sure. It becomes less of a basic premise and more of a fleshed out. These are human characters. These are detailed characters.
Yeah.
Even the dragons, I think.
Even the dragons.
Sure. I really want to ask you about what I consider to be a genre of acting, which is CGI acting.
Yes.
Specifically the dragons. How do you guys, I think that some of the best acting on Game of Thrones is people simply reacting to seeing the dragons for the first time. Or any CGI stuff.
Yes.
But could you describe how that works? Are you just using your imagination?
That sounded like the headline of a really, really bad review.
Oh, God.
Some of the best acting in this movie is done by the CGI dragon.
Opposite the CGI dragon.
Opposite the CGI dragon,
Sure.
This guy is so dead, but when he looks up and sees the tennis ball, finally there's a bit of light.
It is a tennis ball.
Well, it can be a tennis ball. It can also just be someone sitting, if it's far away, they sit with a laser pen.
To point.
And then you follow this laser dot.
And you just fill your head with an image of what you think it looks like?
Yes. I guess so. It's also just, the beauty of that is you don't want to do too much. Because it's really about how, I think, in a situation, if it's just seeing a dragon, you look up, just, I guess, don't do too much. Because the audience have to read, they read into you based on what they know about the character. And then they go, I bet Jaime's really scared now. Or excited.
Cool.
Or...
Yeah.
And if they only knew that the actor hasn't got a clue, just going, there's the dot. And maybe that's why it's the best acting, because there's no thought. That's just...
Well, I love that idea of us transposing what we
but that's what we do.
Yeah.
There's a famous... I remember this old... I think it was a Russian movie where they played just with the... filming a person staring, into the...
Sure.
The far distance. And then they would put 3 different scores on. And it was just amazing how You just read. It was like a romantic score. You're gonna go. I bet she's looking at
he's in love.
Love, and then the next one was a doom, doom, doom. Oh my God, so scary. I mean, that's the thing.
Cool.
We read so much into it.
Totally. So stillness and the more subtler choice is often what works.
Well, I think it can work. Obviously, if it's a monster that's coming against you, you should probably try to do a little more than just being
Sure.
But
and how different are takes? How different is it take to take? Do you have one take where you're like, a dragon?
We did one where we were shooting, and that was season 7 when there's this big scene where everyone's together. We're waiting for Daenerys to arrive, and she arrives on a dragon. We all look up, and then we see this for the first time.
Yeah.
And Jeremy Podeswa, the director, he did say, okay, more, bigger. We need more, just so they have some options.
Right. And those scenes are a monster to film.
It's just it's funny because when I'm asked what's the hardest, I think those scenes are the hardest because you're sitting. We shot that for 10 days. This one scene, and most of those 10 days you're just behind the camera or next to the camera because they do coverage on every character, and it takes so long.
Right.
And
you're wearing armor.
And that whole thing, but also just staying focused, and it was really hot, and it was shooting Seville. I remember my coverage was at the very end, and at that point we'd done it like hundreds of times, and people are starting to lose interest, but also just staying focused for so long is difficult.
Yeah,
I think those scenes are the hardest. If it's just a two-hander, it's just great. It's fun.
It's better. Yeah. Do you sometimes wish that you were the Cersei character staying in the castle and drinking wine?
No, I don't. No, I think I'm clearly biased, but I think the Jaime character is so much fun, and I love being out. I love being on location in the mud and just to smell it and all that. It just helps. It makes it easier.
That's how you know it's a good viewing experience when you as a viewer feel like you can smell the action.
I know exactly.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What does go into the physical prep? Like what went into it, first of all, at the very beginning when you were shooting the pilot?
Well, as with anything, no matter what you do, if you have a character, if he has certain skills that you don't, you just have to kind of learn the basics and then fake the rest.
Okay.
And
cool.
And I mean, fighting is always, it's like you just have to learn. It's like a dance. You have to learn the steps because you can't afford to make you have to know that if I put my sword there, he's gonna parry and not allow me. He's not gonna let me cut off his arm,
right, or hand,
or hand, yeah. So it just takes some time. That's just rehearsals, and riding a horse, you have to practice if you don't do that.
Oh, sure.
But that's just the basics.
But see, we here on this podcast love to hear about the prep and also the idea of faking it. Like, I suppose you can't quite fake riding a horse, but if you book a TV show, it gives you a little bit more time to master that as it goes.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting. I mean, and they have. I mean, I really love writing, and and so for me, this has been so much fun. And I would, whenever I had time, I loved hanging out with the horse wrangler and those people because they're just great.
Yeah, cool.
And just to learn more, also sometimes more than I needed. But because I did that, I was able to do things at the end of the run that I didn't in the beginning. So I could do some fun stuff with
like charge a dragon with a spear.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So you didn't have to have a double do it.
Oh, okay.
And I just think it's just fun.
Yeah. And how often do you work with a stunt double, and do you have a good relationship with that whole?
Oh no, they're fantastic. They're the best. No, I try to do everything myself, just because it's easier for everyone. I think.
Okay.
Also, just for editing, if they don't have
editing,
to.
directing, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But obviously, if something is really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
There's also an insurance thing where they go, you can't do that.
Okay.
You're not allowed to do that. And then that's great because then I don't have to, and then I'm just relieved that I don't have to.
Sure.
Because the thing is, I remember I worked with, I think it was Harrison Ford. I did a film once years ago, and he had this definition. He said, "I don't do stunts. I do physical acting. And when it becomes about stunts, then I'll let the professionals step in."
That's a good attitude. Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course, you have the Tom Cruise of this world that will do everything.
Sure.
And it's not even but it was huge. It was really impressive. But it was also. He has a stunt double, and the stunt double will do everything a number of times before he then does it. So the stunt double will find out where are all the danger zones. Whereas if I'm falling over a table, he will fall over that table 10 times, and then be able to say to Tom Cruise that, listen, be careful when you come around. That's that edge. So I mean that was impressive because he got beat up. That guy. Oh my God. But having said that, Tom Cruise does everything himself.
He does it.
I mean, did you see the one he did in
Mission Impossible?
Yeah, when he broke his ankle.
The most recent one? Yeah. What did he jump from? He jumped
from across a building, and then he broke his ankle. And he got up and ran out of shots so they could use it. It's in the movie.
It's so insane. That's so insane.
But the funny thing is, you go, that's insane, and they shut down for so long. You gotta go, yeah, but the amount of publicity they got out of that
story got,
that's been on every news site in the world.
It's like all we know about that movie. That's so true. Going into it, because I've never had this on this podcast before. A quick tangent about horse acting. What are like the pointers of working with a horse or of riding that people should know?
Oh, don't do it if you're not comfortable.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because it's dangerous. If you're not comfortable being on a horse, then you don't think that you can fake that one.
Okay, that's one of those things you can't lie on your resume about.
No, and we've seen that, and then things happen that shouldn't happen.
People are on horses who aren't.
No, because the horses are really smart. They know. So if you don't know what to do with your feet, so if you're constantly telling the horse, go faster, and you're pulling it, then at one point the horse, even if it's the nicest horse, is going to go, this is messed up.
I don't trust you. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just the most. I mean, when you work with great horse wranglers, then the horse is so well trained that I think most people can do the basics.
Sure.
Without getting killed.
Yeah, I feel like the horse wranglers.
Have you ever ridden?
I have ridden. Yeah. I do know that basic idea of the pulling if you want them to go faster, which is often an unconscious movement where you're just naturally pulling back to.
You shouldn't pull them to go faster.
No, exactly. But people will.
Oh no, but that thing where you get nervous,
You get nervous, yeah. And the horse can totally tell.
And also, your feet. It's also the feet. So you take the feet back, and that's basically stepping on the accelerator without knowing you're doing that.
Right. I could never master turning. Shows you how basic I got a level, but basic turning was a challenge for me. Yeah, I think that's a good way to go. In Honolulu, Hawaii.
Really?
Yeah. Have you been?
No, never.
Oh, you should go.
I'd love to go.
It's wonderful. Yeah. What's Denmark like?
I'm just guessing that it's not like Honolulu. Hawaii.
I'm pretty sure it's, we came from about the most opposite place you can come from. Yeah.
No, well, there are similarities. It's a country made of islands.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Very flat. No mountains.
Very flat. Okay.
A farming country.
Sure. Were you more urban or?
I grew up in a village of 40 people, so really? Countryside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And at what point?
You grew up in a? I'm sorry, I'm just curious.
Oh no, I love it.
In a city or?
Honolulu, which is basically a big city.
Oh, I thought that was an island, Honolulu.
Suburban.
So that's a city.
Honolulu's on the island of Oahu.
Okay.
Yeah, Oahu's the name of the island, and it is the most populous island.
Yeah.
Of the 8 of them.
Okay.
So equivalent of suburban, but like I grew up in a valley. Like it was very picturesque and not what people think of as suburban, I would say.
No.
Not a village of 40.
Not a village of 40.
No. Did you always want to be an actor? At what point was it acting?
I did actually always.
Always?
I didn't really know why. But I wanted to be an actor. And it's like there was no one in the family and
okay.
It was that or a football, soccer player. That was a big thing. But really acting was a dream. I remember I found this essay we had to do I think I was 13. I think most kids have to do that at one point, and then you have to, what do you want to be, a plan for when you finish school. What are you going to be? So I put on actor was number one because that was the dream. And then if I couldn't do that, then I wanted to be a journalist because then I would go and my journalist dreams would be about traveling around the world and reporting the truth.
Okay, yeah.
To the people. And if I couldn't do that, I was like, well, then if I can't do any of my passions, I'm just make some money. I was a lawyer. But I didn't want to be a lawyer. I just thought, well, there must be something. Do you think a lot of lawyers have that? A lot of people that go into banking is like, was that their passion? Was that no? But if you go into, if you become a Wall Street broker, do you think that's what you wanted to do when you were 8?
I mean, Wall Street brokers, actually, that probably was number one on their list. I don't know about the lawyers and bankers of the world.
Sometimes it interests me how you end up where you end up.
I mean, the thing about acting, and we found this on this podcast, is it has to be number one on the list in order for it to really happen, I think.
No, I agree.
And it often doesn't happen. Or you...
No, I know. And I have friends that have wanted it as badly as I, and then for reasons that are just, often lack of luck or all these things, and then there's that painful, maybe it's a stupid word, but that's a moment when you just have to go, I have to do something else.
Yeah, or find
another way of getting to the, because it's about storytelling in a way. It's about and then it's about exploring human behavior.
Yep. And the truth.
And the truth.
Yeah.
How do you do this? And there are many ways, and I think that
for sure. Even as a lawyer.
Even as a lawyer, of course. No, of course. Yeah. I mean, I didn't mean I didn't mean it like that, because I actually, when I wanted to be a lawyer, it was kind of the same thing. I just when I said, I just make money, it wasn't that. It was having watched all those shows where you see, the lawyer that stands for the truth, and then, you have the courtroom drama, right? And then, 12 Angry Men and Jack, Henry Fonda then stands up and goes, hang on a second, we can do better than that.
Yeah, cool.
We all better than that, right?
Oh, so there was not so there were performances and TV shows and that kind of thing that inspired you, but you did always want acting at the top of the list.
Yeah, it was. I was one of those annoying kids that would always mimic people on TV, right? Mm-hmm. Like television presenters or whatever it was. I would always, and I'm sure it wasn't very good, and I was driving my family crazy. But that's what I did. And then early on, we did a school play, and I don't remember much from the school play, but I remember something went wrong, and then I just started improvising.
Oh, okay.
And then after, the teacher came to me, I was like, wow, that was amazing.
Oh, so cool.
And I just thought wow, this is meant to be.
Oh, see, that's cool. It wasn't necessarily the applause.
No. It was like, it wasn't.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And then you did study mostly theater?
Yes, yeah. I went to the National Theatre School in Copenhagen.
Very cool.
And then I had this dream of working in England, or in the English-speaking world. I had this, a theater group traveling the world. That was like, wow, that would be amazing. And I thought, well, to do it in English, I would have to train in English. And I thought, okay, So I went over and I auditioned at RADA and at Bristol Vic, and then I got into Bristol Vic.
Oh, okay.
And then I remember I was very lucky. I finished my training in Denmark, and then I got my first job was a lead in this movie called Night Watch.
Yes.
So I shot that, and then the day after I wrapped, I went to Bristol. So they allowed me to start later in the term.
Huh.
And I was there for 2 weeks, and then I realized that I finished 4 years of training, and 4 years of training is more than enough.
All you wanted, okay.
What's great about a theater school is that you focus on something, and you have a group of people that focus on this for a number of for 4 years or 3 years. Mm-hmm. But you have to do it to really learn. I think.
Some point, yeah.
You have to and I was confused. I was 20. I just turned 23, and I was living in England, and I left a girlfriend behind. I broke up because I wanted to follow my dreams. Oh. And I suddenly was like, oh my God, this is not what I want.
Uh-huh.
So I remember I had a meeting with the principal,
Christopher
Dennis. And I think if he'd been understanding, if he'd said, listen, I get it, it's tough. But just wait until Christmas. See how you feel at Christmas.
Sure.
But he kind of didn't. He said the opposite. He just said, you know how many people want to come in? We have a list.
Oh no.
We have 4,000 or 5,000 people waiting to come in here. You're not sure? What the is? And he was. Sorry. Can I use these?
Oh, of course you can swear. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I just said, well, you.
That helps you make the decision.
And
right
I walked
there.
out, and I just walked out the door. And I mean, but also it was just it was the right thing for me to leave.
Yeah.
Because I also if you've ever been to first year drama students are so full of themselves.
And you have to be. Yeah.
Well, you do know Daniel Day-Lewis went here. You know that, right? I know, but we're not Daniel Day-Lewis, are we?
Right.
But But it was weird. It was. But to go back, that was my drive to go. And then I lived in England. I stayed in London for a while.
And you were like auditioning. You were doing the.
Then I went back home, and then the movie came out. It did very well. This Danish film, and then they were going to do a remake in Hollywood, and they did. But
they did?
With Ewan McGregor playing my part, and Nick Nolte and Josh Brolin. It wasn't very good.
Okay.
I worked with Ewan McGregor later on, and he made me promise not to watch it.
Oh, okay. I see.
But it's But then but because of that, I met his agent, and then I got an agent in England.
And that was okay.
In '96, I did my first English film.
Right. And I think that's really excellent advice, because we're all about the early career acting advice. And it sounds like if you're 2 weeks into a new theater program and you just know in your gut it's not for you, and then you have like a shouting match with the principal of the
that didn't help. No,
it didn't help. But it sounds like you knew 4 years was enough for me, and I'm ready to actually do the thing.
That's one of the things about acting. It's like you're an actor when you act.
Yeah.
And you. I know I love my job. I love acting, and I work all the time because I've never been good at the. Sometimes I think of what it would be like to, those actors that will do one movie every 2 years.
Sure.
And then they will spend like 12 months of 18 months just learning how to become, and and their performances. Sometimes you just go, it's just so good.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm just I'm too impatient for that.
You'd rather work more often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you have to stay. Well, it's working, but it's also being part of being engaged with something. I don't know how to explain it, but then because I suddenly realized that one of my favorite actors or actresses, she was away for, Glenda Jackson.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
How long was she away for? She became a politician for.
She became a politician for decades, right?
And now she came back.
Worked in Parliament.
And
she won a Tony Award last year.
Yeah, and the Olivia, I think, and she's so good. And so she's like, clearly, it doesn't always hurt to take some time off.
Yeah, exactly. She won an Oscar, and then she went to be a politician for, I think, a long time.
Yeah, a very
and now she's playing King Lear. You're going to go see the.
I want to go see that. King Lear? For sure.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
That's a.
Well, that's now. They're rehearsing now, right?
I think it's happening. Preview's already started. Yeah. It's got to be. She's got to be amazing.
I should go tonight, but I guess I have this other premiere to go.
Oh, there's a premiere to go to. Okay. Yeah. Is that tonight?
Yeah, Game of Thrones.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Oh, Game of Thrones. So talking about auditioning, especially like that early career thing. What do you tell aspiring actors about auditioning?
It reminds me of this. I don't remember who it was, and you might know who it is. There was some very, very successful business guy who was asked about the secret to his success, and he said, "I don't know. I can tell you a lot about failure." And I think it's kind of the same thing. You have to go into this knowing that there's going to be nothing but rejection for most of your career.
Sure.
And now and then someone will say, this would be great. Let's go play together. And then, and that's what, I have 2 daughters, and they both want to become actors.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I tell them is, listen, I love my job. I encourage you to do whatever you feel like, but just know that there is one aspect of it that's really not nice. And it's really difficult because you keep you keep telling yourself not to take it personally, but it is personal because you're the one who's standing there, and they go, "No, I don't think you're right for this."
Yeah,
I feel it. I feel that I'm right for it. Yeah, but you're not.
Yeah.
You look wrong. You just
There's something wrong.
There's something bad.
I mean, and you never know what that something wrong is. How do you? So the coping after an audition, like, does it just take practice to accept the?
I think it depends on what it is. For me, to be honest, there's been very few times when I've been really disappointed. Early on, there was one. I was in London. There was I think it was called Regeneration. It was a movie by a Scottish director. It was about World War I, about these poets. And I'd been in, and I'd read, and I got very close. He wanted to see me again, and this was going to be it. And he said, "Just go away and work." And I went away, and I worked, and I worked, and I worked, and I read every poem I could find. And I was so deep into it. What I didn't know was he didn't mean go work on that. He meant just go work on your accent. I hadn't.
What?
No, but but that makes complete sense. But I just didn't get it. I didn't understand that was it. So I went back in with my accent, and then I did the whole thing, and I felt it, and I was like, I felt I'd never been so good. I was like, really, this is, research that paid off, and then they said, well, no, we can't do that.
Damn.
And but then again, you learn so much from that. You go, well, you have to cover all bases. And but most of the time it's, I mean, then the moments when you have auditions that are, but I've only had a few of those where it's unpleasant.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Where you kind of walk away feeling humiliated.
Ugh, yeah. And you don't necessarily. I mean, do you still want those jobs?
No. And then there's and then later on in the career, I've had these meetings where you could just have a meeting with a director.
Yes.
And there are some, I've had some messed up meetings where you go, what the, I mean, in that way, Hollywood is a fascinating place because coming from Europe, it's like you go, wow. It's like I met yesterday a friend from Belfast who was the first time in New York. It's like, this is like I'm in a movie all the time, and that's exactly the first time you come to New York, to the U.S. From Europe, you feel like you're in a movie. It's like you look around, oh my God, they actually live like this, like in the movies.
Right.
But Hollywood is this weird thing where you have, so many people live chasing this. A dream, right?
Yeah.
And you have so many sleazebags. You have a lot of less than interesting people. But at the same time, you also have some of the most inspiring, brilliant, talented people within a couple of square miles.
Sure.
It's just about finding those people because there are a lot of...
And distinguishing between the two.
A lot of frogs to be kissed on the way.
That's it. Yeah, totally. And I love the idea that that's true in when you're in the auditioning phase of a career, but also then in the meetings phase.
Oh, yeah. No, but that I mean, I don't think you see that as much in Europe as you do in Hollywood. The whole thing about celebrating ego.
Oh, yeah.
The whole, bad behavior is okay if you're successful. That we will forgive you for being a complete dick.
Yep.
Because you made this song that was great, or because you wrote a movie or whatever. Then it's okay that you're an asshole.
Yeah, it's rewarded.
It's very difficult to get away with that. I mean, at least in Denmark, if you just can't do that.
It's an American quality.
And for some reason, it's like he's rich and he just did that movie, and you go, what? You still?
So it just makes it. Yeah. No.
And of course, and I know it's not okay in the U.S., but people accept it. I did accept it maybe in the past. Yeah. I think there's a shift happening.
I hope. Yeah. I mean, there's certain completely inappropriate behaviors that are now really being brought to light and called out. And
yes.
We have like sexism is a part of the mainstream conversation. And practices in Hollywood, and I think and elsewhere too.
Oh, everywhere. Yes.
Yeah. In fact, I'd love to hear about your work as a UN ambassador.
It's so interesting. Can we go wherever we want to go in this
Absolutely.
talk? Good. Well, I was just in Rwanda, and I work as a Goodwill Ambassador for the UNDP, and they asked me, and I picked these. I've been an ambassador since 2016, and they have the 17 global goals and that are all connected and they're all important. But I said, let me focus on gender equality, number 5, and climate action.
Yeah.
Just because I had, I have 2 daughters. I thought, well, this is important for all of us, but it's, there was a connection, and the climate action, I had a connection. My wife's from Greenland, and you can see the effects of the climate change very clearly on the ice sheet in Greenland and the glaciers. But anyway, and they call me then sometimes, if I have time, they say, we have these projects we'd like to show you, then hope that you can help us raise awareness about what's going on here. And Rwanda, it's this next week, I think, or the week after. No, next week. It's 25 years since the genocide against the Tutsis.
Yeah.
And so that's all I knew.
Yeah.
And I just thought that I was going to go to a place that would be just completely run down, a country destroyed.
Oh, sure.
Because 25 years is not a long time. It's and it was kind of the opposite. It was quite an amazing experience because it's a country that has gone through the worst that anyone can imagine. Because it was 1 million people, more or less 1 million killed, but they were killed also by neighbors and what they thought were friends, and it became this insane bloodlust that is so difficult to comprehend, and you can't really. But then I went there and I was educated, but I was so impressed because they'd made the decision, first of all, never again, but also really let's analyze what the hell happened.
What happened?
How did it get to this point? And there were so many things in that analysis that kind of was a little worrying because you see a lot of those tendencies. I think you see them today. Not just in Europe, but in the U.S., everywhere. Well, it went back 30 years, and it's that whole basic thing of demonizing one group of people, the others, the whole them and us idea, right? The whole why do they always get? And we saw that, and it's not the first or the last time we saw it in, of course, in Germany in the 30s and the 40s. You saw it in Yugoslavia, you saw it in Angola. I mean, we've had all these insane, and we see it now in Myanmar. And we keep thinking that this could never happen again, and then we don't pay attention, and it happens again. So what they did, which was so inspiring, they really analyzed, and they said, well, what we need is inclusion for all. Men, women, everybody has to be involved. If you're disabled, you have to be, you are part of this. If you have whatever religious beliefs, doesn't matter. We don't care about that, but we just want you to be involved. So when it comes to, and also they lost 1 million people, which is, but gender equality, they have 62% representation in parliament by women, 50% in the cabinet.
Oh my God.
They have, and the private, I met with the private CEOs of the biggest companies, and they're pushing this thing. It's so aggressive, this hope for change, and it's happening. And then I met the minister for gender equality, and she was like, well, hopefully in 10 years we won't need me. We don't talk about because then it will just be a natural thing.
Sure. Wow.
And the same with the environment. The environment, 10 years ago, they banned the use of plastic bags. They're going to ban the use of single-use plastic. And I said, hang on a second. We've had that discussion in Europe and in the U.S. That's not possible.
Sure.
And the industry will tell you that if that was to happen, we'll need to do research and to come up with alternatives. It's going to take at least 20 years. And then, so yes, if you want to do that, it's going to take maybe 50 years. It's impossible. And I said, how long are you going to give people here? We're going to give them 2 years, because 2 years will force you to find solutions. Once, I think it's the last Saturday of the month or the first Saturday every month, every adult has to dedicate that day to community service, and that could be helping an old person who can't. I mean, anything. It's little things, big things.
Really?
But that's something you do. And of course, that gives you the sense of community, the responsibility for.
Totally, it's about almost like a national. It's like a national pride thing. That's what.
But imagine, we couldn't do that in Denmark. The whole thing about saying, okay, every Saturday, first Saturday of the month, everybody, we all have to do something for each other.
Yeah.
What's in it for me? There's nothing in it for you, but it's for all of us. Oh.
What's in it for me in the short term? Yeah, because I think everyone thinks very short term, and rather than investing in
but we also think unfortunately, we monetize everything, right? We everything is how much is this worth?
Yeah.
What do I get for this? Also, like the tourism is a growing thing, and they want to explore that but they're not going to compromise when it comes to sustainability. So I said, well, what if someone like a big company comes and says, we're going to spend $1 billion, we're going to build this big resort. All we need is to get a little closer to the park, inside the park. But we'll spend, and they just went, no, that's not going to happen.
No.
We're not going to allow that. And I said, but why? You need the money. You need that. You would need it, but that's just short term again. We have to think. We have to think long term.
Yeah.
What's the best for the people? And also, you can't spend money unless it's benefiting the community. So so that's what I did. I saw these different projects, and it was really inspiring.
As you said, your second on the list was to be a journalist and to find the truth all around the world, and here you are doing it like as an actor and as an ambassador.
No, I'm really very well aware that I'm benefiting from this. I mean, I'm really. Yeah, you yourself. I'm really, sucking everything I can for these people because that's the thing. That's also, it's so important. Like the UN, by default, has to step in the background. If they do great work, they have to give all credit to the country they're working for. I mean, obviously, but that means that a lot of us don't really know how much good is being done on our behalf, right? So sometimes the UN is getting like, this big bureaucracy, and they're just wasting our money. And right now, of course, the US don't want to donate as much as they've done before, and that's why I think it's just like you have, like in the UNDP, which is the biggest aid organization in the world. I've met, they have 6,000 projects now around the world. And you meet people that they don't work there for the money. They don't work there for the glory. They work there because they actually want to make the world a better place. They dedicate their lives to helping others. That's really inspiring. And that should get more support, I think.
Yeah. But they, by default, they have to be in the.
Of course they do, because we all know politicians are the same everywhere. I mean, and that's fine. Then they are the ones that have to ultimately take responsibility for how a country's run. So fair enough, they also get the credit. But it's also important to understand that, and that's another thing in Rwanda where they've actually been. They understood that it was okay to ask for help. Without it, and clearly they are making the transition. They are making the big choices. Yeah. And the UNDP can come in with expert knowledge and say, well, this is how.
What we've seen elsewhere, and
this will work.
Yeah.
But again, for me, just traveling around and seeing what people do, it's also very inspiring. It's also very hopeful for the future, even though. Sometimes you read the papers, you would think that we're all doomed.
Doomed, yeah.
Right?
I often do. I often read the paper and think we're all doomed. So.
Yeah, and there are a lot of things that we need to look at and we need to work with. There's no question about it. And I think right now the biggest is obviously take action against the climate change, so we curb it, because it really is out of control right now.
Are there resources that you recommend? Like, what tiny little immediate steps can we take? Should we
I think it's
donate to the UN?
No, I think how you consume. Just really think about that. It's not about.
I think
you don't have to become frugal, and you don't have to feel like you have to whip yourself because it's not a religious thing. It's just about common sense. Do you need sometimes just get on the bicycle instead of getting in a car? Eat a little less meat. All these little things.
Go vote.
All that. Yes, that's that.
Voting. Yeah.
That would help. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever, in your envisioning of becoming an actor, like you did eventually want to do film and TV, first of all. Was part of the goal like I want to be famous or I want to have a big enough profile, perhaps to even travel the world?
No, I never thought of it those ways. But clearly you're aware of the consequence. One of the consequences of success in this line of work is that there is that aspect of the fame. Now, the fame is you don't know what that is, and then when you experience it, you realize it really is nothing to do with you, really. If that makes sense.
It's a bizarre thing. Yeah.
It is a bizarre thing.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of it, but it's like it's this weird thing that exists. It's like existing next to me.
Right. It is not you.
No.
Yeah. It exists next to you.
And that's fine because obviously nobody. I mean, if I've seen a show or a movie that I like and I see an actor in this, I love. You know, I was when I was young. I was like, Marlon Brando was like. I would look at these old movies and I was just, wow, he's so good. Like I felt I could feel him. Or De Niro, in the 70s and the 80s. You look at those movies Pacino, all those. Obviously, I don't know them. I have no idea what they're like. I mean, but you feel you do.
Isn't that where we feel we do?
And then of course television is even it's much stronger. Like Friends. We all knew them.
We felt like we knew those characters and therefore those actors.
Yeah.
Because they're there in our living rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, for years.
And now, of course, for me, the experience of Game of Thrones is like literally everywhere in the world. There's a recognition. Like people say, "Oh, wow, that's," and then the same jokes everywhere in the world.
What are the jokes?
Well, one every other would be, "Oh my God, you still have your hand
Two
back."
hands.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, no, that's.
I'm glad I didn't make that joke.
You thought of it though.
How'd you know? Yeah, is it something are you ever going to get used to it, or I guess that's part of the thing of it being next to you is you never get used to it.
I don't. No, you don't, and you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't entertain it. You can't entertain it.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, also, Game of Thrones is coming to an end, and it'll slowly fade away. And
I guess, yeah. I guess so. Which brings me to we got to ask first of all, what is next? Are you playing Macbeth at the Geffen?
Yes, I am. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. Before that, I'm gonna do a movie called The Silencing.
Okay.
Which is it's a thriller, which is it's this really cool script. We're gonna shoot now up north. It's set in the north of the state, New York, but it obviously shot across the border because it's for some reason cheaper.
Oh, okay.
So if we all end up in north of Toronto. We're shooting, and then and I just did a couple of movies back home actually, which was really cool to work in Denmark.
Nice. So the process of because filming Game of Thrones wrapped a while ago, do you feel like you've put it to rest, emotionally? Have you said goodbye?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're moving on. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's kind of never felt. You know what it is. And the special thing is that you've first of all, of course, that so many people like it. That's important. Yeah, of course. You connect with so many people. You would tell stories for someone. I mean, I remember having these discussions with all the way back to drama school. That whole discussion between. Are we doing this for the sake of art? Or, I mean, that whole thing.
Yeah.
And there's the school of thought always goes, it doesn't matter if there's only one person in the audience.
Yeah.
We play for him because the theater is bigger than. And of course, there's a truth to that,
Absolutely.
But there's also that thing about saying, well, I want to, especially if you do movies, television, it's a mass medium. You want to reach an audience. I don't think you have. I'm not saying you have to reach.
The proportions of this.
Marvel movie every time, but you have to reach, a lot of people if you can.
Sure.
That's what you want to do. And then to be part of something like this, where you actually reach people all over the world, it's insane, and that's very, very gratifying. But I lost my train of thought. Where was I in the beginning of this? That was a long sentence.
It was brilliant, whatever it was.
It was so amazing.
This is all brilliant. I think we have to wrap up, but thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for actors or those who want to become actors?
parting
get
words.
cast in an HBO
No,
show.
I think that thing you said early on, by the way, that if there's anything else you want to
do that.
do that, and then if you still have this urge, then you can go. I mean, nobody knows anything, and if you meet someone who thinks they know everything, then that's not a teacher you want to work with.
Okay, that's good advice too. Yeah. Well, and that's probably one of the frogs, the frogs you kiss along the way thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nikolaj, thank you.
Thank you so much. This was great.
In the Envelope, an awards podcast, is recorded at Lotus Productions, Hyperbolic Audio, and Big Yellow Duck in New York City, and Soundbox LA, Mark Grouse Studios, and Buzzies in Los Angeles. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, tweet us at In the Envelope, leave a review. We want to hear from you. Visit Backstage.com for more content and resources for working artists, and don't forget, you can subscribe to Backstage with a free trial by using the code ENVELOPE at checkout. Thanks, as always, to podcast producer Wiz, Jamie Muffett. You can follow him on Twitter at JamieMusicNYC. You can follow me, Jack Smart, on Twitter at JackSmartWrites. Thank you to the team at Backstage, the most trusted name in casting: Peter Rappaport, Mark Stinson, Samantha Sherlock, Francis Ramos, Lauren Rout, Caitlin Watkins, Rawaan Alkhatib, and especially should-be Oscar nominee Kasey Howe. Thanks for listening.